crime gang hiding behind a club's colours, run by Lebanese Australian guys and formed by Ibrahim's younger brother, Mick. Comanchero, under newly minted national pres, Mahmoud Mick Howie. There was also a newly formed chapter of the Hells Angels in Sydney, the City Crew, as well as the Parramatta Banditos, comprised of many of the former Paranomads. As part of that war, you saw a lot of shootings in nightclubs. There were bombings of clubhouses. The Nomads' then national president, Scott Orick, had his tattoo parlour shot up. The Commos had their clubhouse firebombed. And then there's a shooting outside the DCM nightclub on Oxford Street. Police suspected Comanchero payback for the clubhouse fire. Next, Comanchero boss, Mick Howie, was the target of a shooting at a Leichhardt restaurant. And as late as March 2008, the owner of a King's Cross nightclub was shot at because he wouldn't let a bunch of Hells Angels in. And on the same night, some NRL players were shot at. The shooters may have been Notorious members, flexing their newfound muscle. You know you're big time when somebody tries to kill you. And Notorious's arrival as a significant player is best indicated when somebody tried to blow up the group's president, Alan Sarkis. Police suspect either the Comanchero or a former bikie whom Notorious was chasing over a debt. Then came another flashpoint. The opening of a Hells Angels tattoo parlour deep in Comanchero territory in Brighton Les Sands. To try and reach a compromise, senior members of the Commos met with the owner, Peter Zervas. Sources claim at some point his brother Anthony, who had gone to school, was in the same year as Commo National Pres, Mick Howie, busted in with a shotgun and pointed it at least one of the Comanchero. No one knows if the story's true, but if it is, it wouldn't have gone down too well. Following that meeting, the tattoo parlour was shot at and finally burnt out. Some have traced the recent enmity between the clubs to that rumoured breach of underworld etiquette. Around this time, there was also another flare-up in the long-running Banditos and Rebels feud. The two clubs started shooting at each other over November and December of 2008. There were more than a dozen shootings across 20 days. It fell quiet when police arrested 4 Banditos in a car with a bunch of guns. As the Rebels and the Banditos feuded, the conflict between the Angels and the Comanchero escalated. On February 4, the Crystal Street clubhouse of the city chapter of the Hells Angels was bombed. The bomb itself was fairly large and well sandbagged to direct the force of the explosion inside the club. It was a worryingly well-made explosive device that had police concerned. Only a few moments later, a tattoo parlour affiliated with the club was also shot at. No one has been charged over the bomb, but both the Commos and Notorious are in the frame. A few days later, a Commo member was shot in the leg by 4 men in Hells Angels colours. Then in March 2009, another family feud re-emerged when Abdul Darwish was gunned down in front of his wife and children. Now, while the Razak and Darwish clan war is not involved with bikies, it created a tense situation, and other feuds seemed to re-emerge. One of them being the historic enmity between former members of the Parramatta Nomads chapter. One of them, Mahmoud Dib, is now the Sergeant-at-Arms of the Parramatta Banditos, and he was involved in a dispute with members of Notorious. That exploded when Dib's home was shot at, with several bullets narrowly missing his young son. A series of drive-bys followed, some targeting Notorious, some targeting the Bandits. They reached a climax on March 23, 2009. A group of Banditos' associates or members hid behind a bush on an abandoned couch near a house they had been told was going to be hit, armed with machine guns that even killed time by apparently ordering burgers with fast food wrappers strewn about the place. Suddenly, 2 cars carrying people associated with Notorious drive up, perhaps planning to shoot at the house. But they didn't expect to be welcomed by the Bandits, who opened fire and sparked a brief but intense gunfight in the middle of a Sydney suburban street. That shootout came only hours after what has become an incident of national significance, the fatal Sydney airport brawl. The president of the Angels Sydney chapter, Derek Warnahu, boarded a plane in Melbourne and realised he was sharing the flight with the Comanchero national president, Mick Howie, along with 4 of his members. Both Warnahu and the Comancheros must have realised that a brawl was a distinct possibility when they landed in Sydney, given the club's recent disputes, and both sides organised backup. The ensuing wild brawl at Sydney Airport left Anthony Zervas, the brother of the Angels' Peter Zervas, dead. in the departures hall. Police have since charged 14 people, 11 Comanchero, 2 Hells Angels and another man with riot and affray. And in a move not seen since Milpera, they've charged all 11 Comanchero with the murder of Anthony Zervas. A week later, Peter Zervas himself was shot as he arrived at his mother's Lakemba home, just before midnight. When the police arrived, they found him half standing against his car. He was taken in a critical condition to hospital and has since refused to talk to police and has turned down offers of protection. No one has been charged over his shooting. Now, everybody is on tenterhooks, waiting to see what will happen with the new legislation designed by the New South Wales government to smash the clubs.
It gives us the capacity to ban individual gangs and then to make it a criminal offence to associate with members of a gang. Many of these motorcycle gangs are simply a front for...
Club members are quickly becoming used to being arrested for even the most trifling of matters. For the first time in decades, the clubs have come together under the banner of the United Motorcycle Council. They've even recruited a PR company to repair damage done since the airport brawl. The UMC aims to combat what the clubs see as the state and federal governments trying to legislate the one percenters out of existence. The clubs are now fighting their biggest war ever, one for their very survival. The brothers have laid down their arms, for now.